Hi everyone, Richard here at Calvin Wazoo with another video in the ongoing series Frank Zappa, one album at a time. And we have reached Studio Tan. All right, so got my copy here of Studio Tan, an original on discreet. Got some damage here on the label. But yeah, so we're on the discrete label. I also have a Japanese pressing with the obi. Very cool. And it also has, although it's, got some other information on there, but on a discrete label as well. So yeah, Studio Tan is part of what Frank wanted to release, as an entire package of albums that were to be called Leather, which eventually did get released. But when he turned the material over to Warner Brothers, this was also when he was turning the material over that turned into Frank Zappa New York. Things with Warner Brothers, the relationship really fell apart. And they, some of the things that contributed to this, one of them being the album art. When they went ahead and released this, as well as Sleep Dirt and Orchestral Favorites, these were all part of the Leather package. They got this other guy to do the cover art, and where's Gary Panter? Yeah, Gary Panter did the cover art for this and Sleep Dirt and Orchestral Favorites. And the interesting thing was Gary knew how picky Frank was about cover art. He would have he would design it with Cal Schenkel, or he would be intimately involved in the process, and and then he approved everything. And this was a case where Warner Brothers went behind Zappa's back, and released these records separately and with this different art. There's Gary Panter was interviewed, and in this interview he said, "I was wondering why I wasn't meeting Zappa because I know he's a total control freak. Then I found out while I was doing the third one, that would be Orchestral Favorites, that they were unauthorized, and that's why I wasn't meeting him. He was going to sue Warner's. I'd written him fan letters, and I'd met Cal Schenkel when I first went to California. I wrote him after I did those covers, but I never heard from him. Matt Groening said he liked, or Groening, I never know how to pronounce his name, said he liked the images okay, and Gail used them again in reissuing the record, so I guess it's okay. I like the music a lot, and I'm a total Zappa fan since high school." So, yeah, Gary discovered, and found himself in a somewhat awkward position because of what Warner Brothers, was doing with the cover art. But anyway, the record was released in September of 1978. And musically, there are portions of the record that were, recorded in different time periods, and many of the songs had different developments, different periods of development, and then, before finally being put together. The epic song that probably most people think of with this is the side A song, the 20-minute plus song Gregory Peccary, which, yeah, really is quite an epic, designed as a ballet, and it was also another continuation of Frank's lambasting rock operas and etc. So musically with Gregory Peccary, there were portions that were recorded at different locations and at different times. So you've got one portion of it being recorded at Caribou Studios in Colorado, and this would have been in December of 1974. And remember, this was released in 1978, okay? And then there were portions that were recorded at the record plant in LA. That would have been January 1975. And then in September 1975, there were some tracks that were recorded at a performance at Royce Hall at UCLA. Now, even some of the very basic tracks to Gregory Peccary were actually laid down in 1972 during the Waka Jawaka and Grand Wazoo sessions. So the song, in terms of its content, particularly its musical development, really, goes back quite a ways. And the name Gregory Peccary, we've got this allusion, because it talks about Gregory, which is the allusion to Gregory Peck, but also Pope Gregory the 13th, and then peccary, which, is a pig-like animal. So the piece also has a lot of conceptual continuity going on, both lyrically and musically, all right? So the general gist of the libretto, I guess you could say, is that Gregory Peccary runs this company called Big Swifty. So we've got the allusion to the Grand Wazoo. It's Big Swifty Incorporated, which is a company that sets trends. And then there's Billy the Mountain, who actually plays a role in the song Gregory Peccary. But then there are also musical quotations from other artists, such as Chameleon by Herbie Hancock. There's a quotation from Dust My Broom from Elmore James. Then there's also a quote from Entry of the Gladiators. This is a circus march by the composer Julius Fučík, I think. It's a Czech name, I think. I'm not sure on the pronunciation. And then there's a quote by, from Louie Louie, the Richard Berry song. And then there's a quote from My Three Sons, the TV show. And there are also some musical quotes from Frank's history. So there's musical quotes from Billy the Mountain from that piece. Also from the Don't Eat the Yellow Snow suite, and also from Blessed Relief, which was on Grand Wazoo, and also a musical quote from It Just Might Be a One-Shot Deal, which is from Waka Jawaka. So lots of things going on there. And so the story is about this pig who invents the calendar, and this causes all kinds of problems because now people can plan ahead, they can collect rent and, determine their age. And this creates all kinds of problems. All right. So, and I would, this is not something new to Frank, his discussion of time and the origin of time. And I would refer you back to, and I have a link to it, to my video from my review of Lumpy Gravy, where he's talking about the big note. So, these are concepts and topics that, Frank discusses, both in terms of, interviews he's had, but also, through the music. The music in this song is just fantastically crazy and intricate. All right, I'm going to read this. This is from the Big Note, and it talks about the overdubs that were done for the percussion overdubs. Yeah, all right, so this was March 4th in 1975. This is engineer Michael Braunstein recalling. All right, did the percussion overdubs with Alan Estes and Emil Richards in Studio C. The entire studio was filled with 2 truckloads of those guys' percussion stuff. At one point, FZ had them running from instrument to instrument so violently that Estes had to stop and take his shoes off and put on tennis shoes. Then we had to put him in bare feet because we could hear his shoes squeaking on the linoleum floor. So just a lot of stuff going on. Also, Terry Bozzio was writing about this. The track I consider to be Frank's masterpiece, or one of them, this one being Gregory Peccary. I was so disappointed when it was sneaked out with the other 2 discs with no promotion or even any fanfare at all. We played a large section of this hard piece live, and the section used was edited in by Zappa. So that would probably be the UCLA part that was, where it was recorded. I remember recording this in the afternoon at the hall, Royce Hall, and being only 4 bars from the end of this 15-minute long, difficult composition. And the union guys stood up and stopped everyone, telling us we had to take a 10-minute coffee break. Union rules. Frank and a lot of us musicians were furious. So yeah, the music is just absolutely amazing, and it's progressive in terms of it's advancing. All right, so you have the lyrical content. Frank's does just his normal voice at normal speed, but he's also the voice of Gregory Peccary, which is sped up. And then there's some other, voices. Billy the Mountain speaks. And so there's the story that is going through, but the musical pieces are just amazing. And what I mean by progressive, as if the song is continually advancing. It isn't like there is this main theme being repeated over and over again. So it's just, it is a truly, truly amazing piece. And one of the probably, crowning jewel compositions, of Frank that I'm sure many people consider. However, it wasn't really ever performed as a whole live. Sections or different suites, so to speak, or subsections of the song were played from time to time during shows, but I'm not aware of a show in which the entire piece Gregory Peccary was played. But the Ensemble Modern performed and recorded a 2003 release that was called Gregory Peccary and Other Persuasions, and they played the entire piece. One of the interesting things too at the end, all right, so you got this pig that creates the calendar, and then I think it's the last piece, or the last part of the suite or section that's called The Philosopher Speaks. And so Gregory goes to this philosopher, and it's interesting because philosopher as a word is a denigrating word to somebody who speaks beyond their knowledge. Talking about a subject of very esoteric subject of really fine detail, but they really don't quite know what they're talking about. So, for example, if you go to the Urban Dictionary, here is what they have as an example of a philosopher. Johnny over there revealed himself to be a true philosopher when he attempted to explain how quantum theory relates to religion. We realized this when he referred to quantum as something to do, with maths and stuff. Okay, so I'm sure we have all encountered philosophers. The reality with this, though, it's side 2 that I like a lot better, on this record. Gregory Peccary, is good, but musically, I really like side 2. And I probably could have just about included this in my top 20 Frank Zappa albums when I made that video. You certainly were going to place it in the top 25, but, this one could be in the top 20, maybe at number 20, number 19. It's just those selections, at that point, number 19, number 20, could be interchanged. But the opening track on side 2, Let Me Take You to the Beach, is probably why I don't include it in the top 20. It's an okay song. It just, I don't know, it just really doesn't do very much for me. But the next 2 pieces are really, really amazing. All right, we've got revised music for guitar and low budget orchestra. And what we also got going on in this song is this guitar solo that Frank's playing on an Ovation nylon string acoustic electric guitar. Really sounds exquisite. And then you see Bruce Fowler transcribed that solo, quadrupling it with various trombone parts that were recorded at different speeds. So, just really amazing. Musically, the piece is it's stunning. It is interesting, and in terms of composition, I think it's one of Frank's best. That and the one that follows this, the score for revised music for guitar and low budget orchestra actually goes all the way back to before Lumpy Gravy. So this is, again, something that Frank had been working on for a really, really long time, and it has a connection musically to what later developed into the little house that I used to live in. The title, okay, is interesting, okay? Revised music for guitar and low budget orchestra. Well, Frank had made a request for a 97-piece orchestra, and what he got was an 11-piece orchestra. So that's kind of, that's where the song comes from. Now, the album that Jean-Luc Ponty released with Frank's help, this one here, King Kong, all right? There is a it's a 19-minute, 20-second version of music for electric violin and low-budget orchestra. So that's, how it was named and released then. And it includes 14 minutes of material that was unreleased in the Studio Tan version. The Studio Tan version is, I'll have to look at the actual record here to get the track time. It's 7 minutes and 36 seconds, and we're talking about on the Jean-Luc Ponty King Kong, 19 minutes. This was also overdubbed. Portions of it were overdubbed using drums by Chad Wackerman, and that was released here on this one, The Guitar World According to Frank Zappa, which is an excerpt from revised music for guitar and low-budget symphony orchestra, and which is just a mere 1 minute and 40 seconds. So this is the vinyl release of this particular recording, which originally was released only on cassette. So I don't know if any of you had that one. As you know, I did pull this out, so I might as well show it. This came out. I think this was a Record Store Day issue, and it is a Zappa Records, you know, on the clear vinyl. So this also then blends in really well with Redunzel, which is the, you know, final track on the album. And again, really, really amazing piece. And the title, you know, is actually, it comes from the fact that the Zappa family, you know, in the 70s, they had a car, and that was the license plate, RDNZL. And I'm not sure if it was a vanity plate. Probably it was a vanity plate. I didn't find any information on that. But it was kind of this play on redundant and Rapunzel. And according to Dweezil Zappa, it was a reference to his mother, Gail, in terms of the way she talked. Very circular, and it took her a while to get to a point. So that was, you know, what Redunzel was all about. As I say, the song on this recording, it transitions really well from low budget, and even though they are two different songs. And this was also a song that was played frequently in concert. So there was a regular guitar solo in it, but then he would also, Frank would also include guitar solos, or excuse me, not guitar solos. He would include other solos from the other musicians. So, you know, Jean-Luc Ponty, when he was touring, you know, would get a solo. Napoleon Murphy Brock would often get a solo. Bruce Fowler, I think, would often, you know, get a solo. So depending on the touring group members, you know, other musicians would also be given solo, but it always had a regular guitar solo in it. And both these songs, Low Budget Orchestra and Redunzel, to me, are much more interesting even than The Adventures of Gregory Peccary. They are, to me, more engaging. I am really drawn into the music while I'm listening to it. And, you know, as I say, this album could have easily been ranked higher, or ranked within my list of my 20 favorite. But, you know, it just didn't quite. Man from Utopia, you know, probably has more clunkers on it, even though I included it in my top 20. It's just that those clunkers, they're not quite as anachronistic, I think is the term I want to use, as Let Me Take You to the Beach. You know, it just comes off weird to me. And that, you know, a lot of other people may really enjoy that. So that is my take on this really interesting album, Studio Tan. So here's the Japanese cover again. Yeah, great stuff. And all mixed up with the history of the release of Leather. I will have a link in the Down Under, because I mentioned Lumpy Gravy. I think you want to go back and look at that if you haven't, because you know, I was talking about the you know, the introduction of the calendar by Gregory Peccary, and then the Philosopher, and then, you know, going back to Lumpy Gravy and hearing that, you know, these are themes and concepts that Frank has always been developing with his conceptual continuity. And then I'll have a list to my top 20 as well. And, you know, hey, share your thoughts about this. And remember that I am also on Instagram as NewsDude76. That's NEWZDUDE76. And please remember to pray for the people inside your head, for they won't be there when you're dead.